All right, it's Fantasy Football Now, brought to you by Fantasy Sports and DSP Media. I'm Tito. He's Chad Rank. Go to the website, fantasyreports.com. You can also download the app. It's free for Android and Apple users. Fantasy Reports Facebook group also out there as well. And so Chad and I are going to do this. We're going to talk tonight about, we got a variety of things to talk about. The first thing we have to talk about is why in the hell did you turn down my trade offer when I offered you Matthew Stafford and I wanted back for you the backup Justin Fields in a second-round pick in a dynasty league? Not sure why you rejected it without a counter offer. Let's get that out of the way first so it's not awkward for the entire show.
Exactly. So I have Josh Allen in that league, so Stafford was going to end up being more of a backup, and I think I'm buying what's coming out of Steeler camp. That
great.
Feels good.
You're not supposed to buy that.
Either one. I mean, he already started fighting Russell Wilson, so we'll see. So no, I just like it. It was a good trade. Like it I should have taken it, but my love for Justin Fields.
It's fine.
It's just that because really, like the second round pick really is a non-factor for me because I haven't looked at next year's class yet, but I think it might even be a little bit worse than this year's class. Of just
I think
talent.
it is too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was an issue. So it's basically Stafford, Fields. So
right.
It was a good deal. I just like Fields.
I want to steal Fields.
If I did not have Allen,
right,
then I would have jumped all over it because I would.
Right.
I can't go in with like Fields as my QB1.
Right.
It was a good deal. I'm not mad at you.
No, I'm pissed at you. But nonetheless, let's get to this thing. I saw, me, Chad. You've known me for 10 years. We've known each other.
10 years, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you know that I always talk about the number of touches running backs get. And when you get to a certain point, it's like, danger, Will Robinson, dating myself, danger. And we've seen certain guys that have fallen off a cliff after a big year. I always look at, when you look at running back touches, you can't just look at regular season. You have to look at if they make a run in the postseason. Ray Rice is example one of that one. The year Baltimore won the Super Bowl with Ray Rice as a running back. Now, granted, he had the off-the-field issues as well, but he was never the same running back after that year where he had played through the Super Bowl. So you got to look at all the touches, the carries, the receptions, and count the Super Bowl as well. Now, I saw this thing somebody put out there about the running backs who led the position in touches each year and how they did the following year. In 2012, Adrian Peterson led running backs in touches. The next year, he was running back 45. LaShawn McCoy led in 2013. Next year, he was running back 12. DeMarco Murray, God, the Cowboys ran him into the ground. They ruined his career.
Yes, they did.
In 2014, he led in touches. The next year, DeMarco Murray was running back 15, but he was never the same after that. In 15, Adrian Peterson led the league, then running back 125 in 2016. David Johnson, the Temple of Doom special. He led the league in 2016, and then running back 114 the next year. Le'Veon Bell in 2017 led it, then he sat out the next year because of the contract stupid stuff he did. Zeke is the one who really bucked the trend. Zeke in 2018 led the NFL running backs in touches and then finished running back 3 in 2019. These are all regular season numbers. In 2019, it was McCaffrey. He was running back 54 in 2020. 2020, Derrick Henry. He was running back 22 in the next year. Najee Harris, 21, running back 14 the next year. Josh Jacobs in 22, running back 28 in 2023. I think those are real things you have to worry about, and especially this year with Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, absolutely. I think he had I just looked it up. I think 59 postseason carries.
Right.
And he's getting at that age too, where you kind of start worrying about that. Yeah. And he's not a big dude either. So most of those guys like Zeke's a guy, I think he was still relatively young when that happened and he's a bruiser. He's a load. So, with McCaffrey's frame, I do worry about it. He's had injuries in the past too. So like I said, I am not taking him at 1. If he fell to 5 or later, then I think you have to take him just because even for 3 weeks he could be amazing.
But we don't want him at 1. We don't want the number 1 pick, right?
No, I don't.
You and I are both going to do 50 drafts this year with the ones who do FantasyDraftProxies.com and just the leagues we're in. We're going to do 50 drafts each. And I don't ever want to have the number 1 pick. Give me 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. and then let me get a little earlier in the second round. I don't want the number 1 pick this year.
No, because like you said, if you go, especially if you know McCaffrey's going to go 1, then if you get 2 through 6, let's just say you're talking Lamb, Hill, Chase, Bijan, Hall. You can even start throwing like St. Brown. Like, I mean, there's 6 guys right there that I would not mind in the first round.
Yeah,
and then,
I want no part of CMC.
An earlier second round pick too, where you're getting another high quality receiver or running back.
Yeah, CMC this year for me, and he may be great again.
Yeah.
In a dynasty league, I'm definitely not going to touch him. But in a redraft league, yes, if he's there at 4 or 5, 6, I'll take the risk. I don't want to, but I will. Right. And then just make sure I get another running back I can count on very soon thereafter, either in the second or top of the third, whatever it's going to be. But I don't want I don't want number 1 this year. And I don't know if that makes us outsiders on that or not, Chad. Do you think that, like most years, people, I got the number 1 pick, I'm great. I don't feel that way this year at all.
No, and I think a lot of people, I think people will, if they're buying in, like they want one of the top, like Lamb or Hill. I think that's it. That's where, if you want one of those guys, then having the 1's fine. I have no problem if you take Lamb at 1 or Hill at 1. But I'd rather get a high-end running back. But I've listened to a lot of guys, and I don't think too many of them are wanting the 1 pick just because they know it's there's not that one guy that you're like, yes, that is the guy.
Yeah, look, CMC could put up numbers. We've seen his numbers he puts up, but still, it's 28. He's already nursing an injury right now. Mm-hmm. He played late into the season last year. You got to start looking at that stuff.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. If you don't take, let's say CMC, number 1, he's gone. You're picking at some point in the next few picks. Who's your number 2 running back this year? Do you have more belief in Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson? And I sounded like Howie Mandel the way I said that. Deal or no deal? Do you like Breece Hall or Bijan this year?
We'll get your answer after the break. So, it's like they're right there. I prefer Bijan because I think he's going to have more in the passing game.
Right.
But Hall was so good last year. They're both young. So I will take Bijan just because I like him better. But Hall was so good last year. Yeah. So I sometimes I'd rather just give me 3 or 4 really, because if you figure McCaffrey goes 1, someone's going to take Lamb, then you're at 4. You get one of those guys.
Lamb's your top receiver this year?
I think he has to be. Like that offense. Like I just saw a stat where if you took the last 50 regular season games, Prescott's numbers are like almost identical to Mahomes.
Right.
So like they're gonna put up points. Lamb is so good. He hasn't been injury prone, and it's him or Hill, just because Hill is so explosive. But I think Hill's got more of an injury risk, both to himself and his quarterback.
Sure.
And I just think Lamb is the clear-cut one, just because Jefferson's quarterback situation is horrible.
Jamar Chase.
Yeah, he's in there. I have him at 3 because I think the Bengals are going to be pretty good with Burrow healthy. I just think like they will probably run the ball a little bit more if they're ahead. Like I just don't see Zach Taylor the kind of guy that's going to just keep pushing. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to be like, hey, we got the lead, let's milk it, dink and dunk, and just kind of milk the clock. Where I think the Cowboys and the Dolphins will just kind of let loose and throw.
And then we got the news now. There's been trade rumors for months about Brandon Ayuk, and it came down that it was like, oh, it's either going to be the Browns or the Patriots. And then it's no, it's not the Patriots now, and they want a player back. Steelers are out of it. Commanders are out of it. Then Steelers are back in it, and now we're not sure what the truth is on this. It sounds like though the Steelers might be the leader in the clubhouse, although the Browns would throw Amari Cooper in there. Niners want a receiver. The last report I saw had Ayuk. If the Niners will trade him, and he's got all the power in this because he can veto any deal because he wants a new deal. But Ayuk to the Steelers in a deal involving 2 first-round picks. I feel like it is much different for Ayuk's fantasy value if he goes to Pittsburgh than if he goes to Cleveland.
Yes, I think those are the 2 I'd rather see him go. Like, why would anybody want to go to New England?
No, don't go to New England. Right.
No. But, yeah, I think I think both are. Like, if he goes to, it depends. If he goes to Cleveland and Cooper is going back,
right?
Then like him being in Cleveland is pretty outstanding. I saw in Pittsburgh they were at one point. I saw they wanted like Pickens or Freiermuth and like something.
They wanted a receiver back in the deal for sure is what they wanted to try to get. And the Steelers were saying no, but if they give him 2 first-round picks, I think that the 49ers would take it. I think the Steelers would be okay doing that.
Yeah, and I think him being in Pittsburgh would be a good thing, no matter, even if the quarterback thing's just a little dicey because Wilson is getting older,
right?
And Fields is still, still kind of an unknown. But I still like him in Pittsburgh. If he's going to go somewhere, I wouldn't drop him down too much if he goes to Pittsburgh. Like, obviously, if he's in San Francisco, his value's higher than in Pittsburgh. But if, like I said, if he's in Cleveland and Cooper's gone, then I think that's the best spot for him of the three.
You'll appreciate this. I kind of likened it to, if he chose New England, that's like Elizabeth Berkley doing Showgirls. Same kind of that career killer, right? Like you're not going to get any more work somewhere else. If you do that, you've officially jumped the shark and you've canceled your career by going to New England.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think him going to Pittsburgh would be best for him, and then probably Cleveland. Yeah, but not New England, and Washington's out of the running anyway.
Yeah.
All right. You've got some news on some receivers, some things you looked up. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I saw a guy's fantasy flock. He does a pretty good job. If you are in a dynasty, he really does some great work, and he's professional, entertaining. So he was talking about he took, like, as a number one receiver, does it matter if what offense you're in? So he took, like, the last 10 years, the top 5 scoring offenses of that year, and also the bottom 5 scoring offenses, looked at their number one wide receiver for the year and where their finish was. So that's 50 receivers, because you got 5, over 10 years. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty amazing how being in a good offense helps the top scoring offense. So if you're just comparing the two, if you're the wide receiver 1 in a top 5 scoring offense, you're a top 36 wide receiver 96% of the time. So that's something to look at, where if you're looking, for a guy like, well, he's going to be a top 36 guy. On the bottom 5, it's 52%. So about half the time they're a wide receiver 1, 2, or 3, top 36. Top 24, still top 5 offense is 88%. They are a top 24 wide receiver from a top 5 offense. The bottom 5 drops down to 16. And here's where it gets interesting. As a top 12 wide receiver, so a wide receiver 1 in fantasy, a top 5 offense, 68% of the time, so almost 70% of the time, the top 5, the 5 number 1 wide receivers from the top 5 offense is still a wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy. Bottom 5, 4%. There are only 2 wide receivers that have ever made a top 12 in fantasy over the last 10 years from a bottom 5 scoring offense. It was Mike Evans in 2014 and Jarvis Landry in 2017, which is weird. That the Landry one was weird, but I remember he had that one good year. So those are the only 2 top 12. And then for the top 5 scoring offenses, their wide receiver 1 to be a top 9 wide receiver is 56%, so over 50%. And still to be a top 3 is almost 25%. 24% is a top wide receiver from a top 5 scoring offense will be a top 3 wide receiver 24% of the time. There are no bottom 5 offense top wide receiver that is a top 9 or above. None of them have ever done it, which is interesting because you want to throw Justin Jefferson in because they took, and he's a smart dude. So he's like, the best place to look for this year's top scoring, bottom scoring, is just go to Vegas implied total. Like, Vegas knows what they're doing.
Sure they do.
So that's probably the best barometer to try to figure out who they think. It's interesting. So with the top 5 offense, I went to 10 because, like, from team 4 to 10, they're all like 24 point something almost. So it's like a less of a point difference. So I just kind of look at those teams. And the bottom 5 you're looking at too. I still kind of go the bottom 10 because you never know. But like the Vikings are scheduled to be like the 23rd highest scoring team, so they could fall down. Like, New England's the worst team. You don't draft anybody from New England.
No.
And you've got Denver, Carolina, the Giants, and the Titans are projected to be the bottom 5. So you're looking at like Sutton, Deontay Johnson, Malik Neighbors, and then either Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
And then you're looking at Vegas is going to be down there too. So Adams is a guy where he's going second round to maybe look out for. He barely made the top 12 last year, but they weren't a bottom 5 team. And the top 5 teams you're looking at are like the Niners, the Lions, Chiefs, Dolphins, and then the Bills are interesting.
That's always fascinating to me is when we're doing the drafts, the mock drafts, live drafts, all the drafts we do,
right,
and seeing when a number 2 receiver on a team goes ahead of a number 1 somewhere else. Like I always try to watch that and see what it's going to be. But what you're saying now makes a lot of sense. But God, it's just like Malik Neighbors, I love this year. Justin Jefferson, I still love this year. But based on what you're saying, I shouldn't love them that much.
No, and like Jefferson's got the talent to be a guy to break that trend. Sure. Neighbors as a rookie, I highly doubt that he's going to be and you're drafting him as a wide receiver 1.
You're right.
He's going the last 10 years shows he's probably not, unless the Giants just decide they're going to score a little bit more. I mean, they may not be a bottom 5, but they're projected down there. So that's interesting. Like the Bills are interesting though too, because who's their number 1?
Right.
And, and so are they not going to be a top 5?
Is it Curtis Samuel?
I mean, I that's who I like. I mean, I like Keenan Coleman. But again, like how many rookie wide receivers are like I'm even like with Harrison, like you got to take him early second on the Cardinals team that they're probably like, I think they're middle of the pack. They're somewhere right in the middle. So, but he's the only one I think I would be okay taking of those guys in the second round, but I don't want to because there's too many.
You'd be okay with Harris as your first receiver?
Depending where I'm at. Like,
right.
But he's going anywhere from like early second to mid second. Right. He usually doesn't fall to late second. So
yeah.
So if I'm sitting there at, let's say 7 and Bijan fell to 7, it just like, would I take Harrison there? Like, I think if you want to go wide receiver, I think you have to with who's still around at that one, unless you want to go running back. Like I did one with people, like my kids ran it, their friends, and then a couple of the adults from church. And I had the 5th pick, and it was a 12 team. It was like 1 quarterback. And I took Bijan at 5, and then Henry fell to me in the second round.
That's not bad.
And I'm like, he's at Baltimore. He's going to score. Yeah. And so then I end up kind of going receivers a little bit later. But yeah, Harrison as your 1. I think if you do that, you better go get a stud running back, and then you're going to get Harrison. And I think I would load up the next 2-3 rounds with wide receivers just in case.
Yeah, it's going to be it always interests me also on this, Chad, is when you look at things where sometimes you win your league because you drafted a backup running back and got great value out of him.
Yeah. And
there's a couple of guys out there that right now I'm wondering, let me ask your opinion on this.
Okay.
Would you rather have Blake Corum or Chase Brown?
That's a good one. I think I'd rather have, and I think they're getting drafted or right around the same spot.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have Chase Brown because I think he can be the main guy without an injury. And I think Corum has to have a Williams injury or he's not going to get a whole lot of run. I think he will a little bit, but McVay loves just to run his running back, his guy. So I think I'm liking Chase Brown at the value you get because the Bengals will run the ball. Chase Brown is really good out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And his only competition is Zach Moss, who he's fine, but the only thing with that is I can see Moss being the goal line guy. So like Brown would lose out on goal line touches, but of those two, I think I would have a Brown ahead of Corum, but I like them both.
Yeah. It's like, do you believe more in Zach Moss's talent or believe less in, Williams' ability to stay healthy? That's what you're looking at there. That's what you're banking on. What is more likely to happen? That Moss plays really well or that Williams gets hurt, which he is right now, nursing a foot thing as well. Got hurt last year also. and that's where you make the decision on which one you want to go with.
Right.
Not always easy.
No, those are two guys I see a lot with the no running back strategy.
Right.
Those are two guys because you can get them both too. It's not like you have to choose. You can just go back to back on them. But those are two of the guys that a lot of people are getting in that strategy. But yeah, the backup running back is a good spot. Like I said, especially if you can get him as RB4.
Right.
Just because those are the kind of guys that come out of nowhere and like that's Kyron Williams ended up being that.
You've got all these workhorse running backs, number one running backs on all 32 teams. We know most of them. Not all. We know most of them, though.
Yeah.
Would you rather have, like, if you're looking at some of the number one backs on these bottom offenses you're talking about, let me give you a couple of guys here. I'll give you James Conner,
okay,
Ramondre Stevenson, or David Montgomery. Where are you leaning?
That's a tough one because I think Montgomery's in the best offense,
right?
But I think Gibbs is going to be the guy, and Montgomery's just going to have a little backup role. Except
but he'll get the goal line carries, and they had the most red zone touches for running backs last year. The Lions had the most red zone touches for running backs last year in the entire NFL.
Yeah, I think he will. I think he'll be that guy, and he'll have that random like 32 carry game or something that comes out of nowhere. So I think Montgomery. I think just because the scoring opportunity for him is there. I think it sounds weird. Like I think Connor would be next because I think if he stays healthy, they'll probably just continue to use him until maybe they're out of it and they want to see what they have.
Trey Benson,
yeah, or Benson could just take it over. Who knows? But I think I like Connor, and then I can't remember the other
Stevenson.
I just don't think they're going to like. I think I like Stevenson's talent probably the best of all of them.
Right.
But if New England scored average 13 points a game, that would not, I would say that's probably high.
I think Montgomery averaged 80 total yards a game last year, even with Gibbs having a great year.
Yeah.
And he did get a lot of red zone touches still. So Montgomery, I think I like the most out of those.
Yeah.
After that, probably Connor, Stevenson, the next two.
Yeah.
Connor was doing great for a good chunk of last year. I know he's old. Is he 30 now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, I wonder about, obviously, we're not taking a dynasty type situation, but still among those three, if they're all out there at the same point for you, you would take Montgomery, as would I.
Yeah, and I think it's weird. I think Connor's probably getting drafted the lowest of the three. I know they're all probably right in that round 6, 7, 8, but I think Stevenson might. I can't remember. I think Stevenson might be the higher. I think he's even higher ranked than Montgomery, at least draft wise. But I can't.
I just think that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean they're not going to score, and if they and they're going to be down, so they're not going to run the ball a ton,
right?
And they got a new coach, so we have no idea what kind of scheme. Like if Belichick was still there, I could kind of see because he'll probably scheme some stuff up and probably try to run him a lot. But it's weird. Hey, we talked about wide receiver twos.
Mm-hmm.
So like who are some of the wide receiver twos you're kind of like you're really eyeing? I know there's one obvious. I think.
Who's the obvious one you're thinking of?
Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle, Miami. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's probably the one I'm looking at the most. Ayuk could change things if he goes to Pittsburgh. He's the one. Pickens becomes a two, makes him more attractive in that regard.
Right.
But there's not a lot of teams that really have, like the Niners with Ayuk as their two. That's a great thing to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Like
Higgins is one of those guys too,
right.
But I'm like, it's weird because you talked about that where people are taking wide receiver twos over teams wide receiver ones.
Right.
It made me start thinking like outside of Waddle, I'm like, there's really not like anybody.
In Philly, maybe in Philly, Devonta Smith.
Yeah, okay,
right?
Yeah, Philly, Devonta Smith. Yeah, those are
that's
the two.
Probably one. Yeah,
I think those two, and then I think you can maybe throw Higgins in there because I think the Bengals are going to score a lot.
Tennessee, if you believe in Levis, when you've got Hopkins there and you've got Ridley there, and you also have Treylon Burks there, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So, or Keenan Allen and my Bears, baby.
That's another.
I watched Hard Knocks last night, so
I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it was pretty good.
It's all right. Like
the Texans situation.
Like the Texans and the Packers are interesting because I wouldn't mind having a wide receiver from either team.
Right.
And it's one of those weird ones. Like of their, I don't care. Like I've been trying to come out of drafts with either, I really want Rashid Rice over Hollywood Brown, but I want to come out with one of those guys, and I want to come out with either like Watson or Reed. That's kind of like what I'm doing, because those guys are usually, I think Rice is going to start coming up, but those guys are kind of going in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. So I kind of like to get a cheap wide receiver and a Packers wide receiver, just because those offenses are going to score.
It feels like Rice, the legal stuff is going to go. He'll be fine for this year, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It might be something later on. But yeah, Rice is somebody you could probably get good value on that one as well.
Yeah.
With the Texans, though, how do you rate their 3 receivers? Like, give me the order you would take them in.
The order I would take them in, I think, would be, it's going to sound weird. I think I would prefer Dell 1.
Okay.
And then I think Diggs 2, because I think people are sour on Diggs, but he's still, I mean, I know he's older, but he's still super talented, and he may try to be on his best behavior being in a new team. Right. Winning team, like, not that the Bills weren't, but I think, with D'Amico Ryans, I think he can get the best out of it. And then I think it's Collins. I just think Stroud likes Dell. He told them to draft him last year, and I think they got a pretty good rapport. And I think even when Dell and Collins are both on the field last year, like, Dell still had the better stats.
Yeah.
And Diggs, I think Collins is going ahead of all of them, and Dell's, I think, the third one being drafted. But Diggs, you can get a pretty good steal out of Diggs if he can recapture like a wide receiver 1. But that's one I think too is weird, because I think it's just one of those where one guy is going to be the lead guy different weeks, and you can't really count on one of those guys to really carry your team.
I feel like Diggs is one instant away from being Antonio Brown or Terrell Owens. Like, I hope I'm wrong on that, but I hope
right.
It's,
but he gives up the the vibe. So yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one too. Like, those teams that can score a lot of points but don't have that clear-cut one.
Right.
It's like you still want a piece of them, but
right.
At the right price. So, do you like Jameson Williams this year?
It's funny. Somebody offered me a deal in Dynasty League involving Jameson Williams about 3 months ago, and I dismissed it right away. And now I regret doing that, because yes, I'm hearing great things about Jameson Williams in camp. I know the dude's got talent. Yeah. Ohio State had him, couldn't get on the field because all the great. Then he goes to Alabama, has a fantastic year, gets hurt, and he's been one catch last year was for a touchdown, like a 50-yard touchdown, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So having Amon-Ra St. Brown there certainly helps Jameson Williams for me, and plus the fact if they're lining up Gibbs as a receiver sometimes, God, I think Jameson Williams got great potential.
He does. The only thing with him that, like, in Dynasty leagues, I'd be probably trying to get him if you can get him for a good deal. His only issue, I think, is he's not going to get the type of volume, because they got Laporta's there as well,
right?
And so, but I do like him because he's the kind of guy that could get you 2 for 80 and a touchdown.
Yeah, I could see him being a 60 catches, 1,000-yard season.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
he's got that kind of potential.
And his price is pretty good. He's a later receiver, because I think he's going after most of those Green Bay guys, and after Hollywood Brown, so he's closer to like 8th, 9th, 10th round. But I do like him a lot.
Yeah, he's one of the guys I go fishing for late in drafts, obviously, and mock drafts. By the way, we both believe they're very critical. Do as many as you can. Do all your practice you can. Some of them are duds. Some of them, you got idiots in there that make 2 picks and then go auto pick after that. And those guys end up with kickers and defenses in like the 5th and 6th rounds. Yeah. But nonetheless, there are still good ones out there to do. Do you have a go-to site for mock drafts?
Yeah. The Fantasy Pros has the Fantasy Draft Wizard. And it's pretty good, because I think it seems like it's more computer. So there's not going to be that randomness that you would get if you have live people doing it.
Right.
So with the computers, but that was pretty good, because you can set up, what your starting lineups are. You can do half PPR standard. You can even go, if you're drafting out of ESPN, you can set it to be, hey, go based on ESPN's rankings, Yahoo, CBS. And there's no time on it either. And it's pretty quick. And so I like that. And they'll give you the grade, although I think they give everybody A+, because every single draft I've done, I think they give you an A+, because then they want
You're a genius.
No, no. I'm gonna try to tank one this week.
See what happens.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think they do the A+, so then you can click on to maybe pay for something to get more stuff. But that's my go-to. It's a good one. Sleeper. If you have the Sleeper app, Sleeper's a pretty good one as well to do. So those are the two I usually do because you're not waiting for like when you go to ESPN, you're waiting for the draft to start. So you could be
right,
trying to figure out, okay, this is Serpentine is not, and so you're waiting 5-8 minutes, and then you get ready doing some other things, and you come back, you totally forgot about it, and you're already three picks in, and then you got to go do another one. So those are the two that I like, Sleeper, and then Fantasy Pros with their Fantasy Draft Wizard.
He is Chad Ochorinco at Chad Ochorinco on the X. I am at That Happens. And FantasyDraftProxies.com. Look just to the, I guess you're looking at the screen, just to the right of Chad's beard. There you go. You almost had it. There you go. FantasyDraftProxies.com. If you can't do your draft or can't make your draft for whatever reason or want some help first time in it, go there. You can sign up and have people like Chad and I draft your team for you or even run your team for the year, depending on where you're at. But that's always a good place to go. FantasyDraftProxies.com. The Temple of Doom. You don't know him, but he's also involved in that as well. Chad, thanks for the time, bro. Let's do it again here in a couple days.
Sounds good, buddy.